The bond market seems to believe we will get back to 2% inflation in fairly short order. At least the Fed's revised forecasts are admitting some pain in trying to do so.
So let's talk about your United Kingdom, because we did have that budget out. It caught a lot of people's attention, particularly bond traders. You look at what happened to gilts; it's pretty extraordinary. Whatever the rise in rates was here, it's nothing compared to what we're seeing right now in the United Kingdom. What do you make about the economic policy here? Because we have some outside advisors to Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, saying, cutting taxes actually doesn't contribute to inflation.
Well, I wouldn't go that quickly on that point. I think that it's great to set an aspirational growth target, but the UK has a productivity problem. And in the near term, there is a need to cap energy costs, but it could be for lower income people. You don't really need such a large scale transfer. So I do think there's a big risk of inflation from the UK policy. I think a more narrow policy and then coupled with a more medium-run agenda on productivity would have been more what the doctor ordered.
So, Glenn, finally, give us a sense of how these things interact with one another. As we said, there's something like 700 basis points in increased interest rates from central banks around the world. So everybody seems to be tightening, with the exception of Japan, mind you. But what does this do in terms of the global growth and the prospects for the global economy? How does it interrelated?
Well, it's interrelated, I think, in two respects. One, the raising of interest rates through much of the world will have a reduced effect on growth. It's also showing up in markets for commodities, for minerals, for agricultural products, which affects many nations around the world. Second, there's an issue of the Fed's policy error and then recorrection that we're now seeing spilling over into the rest of the world. The rest of the world is caught up in a dynamic that may have had its origins elsewhere. Even here at home, we're likely to see interactions and interrelationships with politics as inflation falls, but recession fears loom.
I don't think we can have this conversation, can't conclude it without talking about currency and what is going on with the dollar, setting yet new records around the world. We saw Japan actually start to try to intervene on behalf of the yen. Doesn't seem to be working much. What do you make of the stronger dollar? Does that have to be contained?
Well, the strong dollar is good on one side of the equation, of course, if you're buying something from overseas, but it really is hurting many American firms and sectors. The real issue is having the dollar reflect fundamental values in the United States, and to make sure that monetary policy and fiscal policies are more coordinated around the world. We're just starting to have that conversation.
Well, let's talk about the coordination just for one moment. This week marked the 37th anniversary of the Plaza Accord. On the dollar. Any prospect of that kind of coordinated intervention with currencies?
I doubt it, but I do think there's going to have to be a discussion at the G20 level of what kinds of fiscal policies and monetary policies work in this environment. And I expect the U.S. to get some rebuke from some nations about the roller coaster we've been on in fiscal policy and monetary policy.
Thanks to Columbia Business School professor Glenn Hubbard. Coming up, I'll talk to California Governor Gavin Newsom about his aggressive climate goals.